Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Myers Studio Morning Jumpstart Mix Along. Hope everybody's doing well today. Miss Susan, good morning to you. Miss Claudia and Cambria, nice to see you and all your work. I got to see some of you guys' work last night. I haven't had a chance to peek, been so busy, and I was blown away. I'm so excited about everything you guys are doing. Miss Shakti, Miss Ellie, how are you guys? So, if it seems like I've been under a little bit of pressure, maybe, but I want you guys to be the very first to know. Yesterday, through this morning, boom, I gave birth. We gave birth. There it is, right there. What we've been doing all year, busting our humps with these online programs, and you guys have been busting it with work doing it. I was able to take all of that and develop it into our 3-month course. I got it all laid out, described, the the schedule, the materials we're covering, everything, the course schedule, the weekly schedule. It was birthed. With some help with some good people. We're going to refine this up, but you guys are going to be hearing about this really soon. Now, just to take care of this newborn. So I don't think our work's done yet, but it's good to have the birthing done with anyway. Woof, that was a little uncomfortable. All right, so are we ready to mix this morning? We ready to mix? Is everybody set up? So let's go through what we have again today. Miss Reenie, good morning, y'all. Good morning. For our cool, we have the single panes gray. Then for our warms, we've got these 5 tube colors ranging from cad red light, yellow ochre, cad yellow deep, burnt umber, and cad yellow light. So our cool, our warms, and then our neutrals. I've got flake white replacement and ivory black. An award? What am I going to do with an award? I want a cookie. I'm a cookie man. I can sink my teeth into some cookies. Thanks, Claudia. Thank you. All right, so yesterday in class, we talked about no matter what color you're working with, knowing how to get around with that color, right? And we talked about our first thing is always value. So we want to know how can we lighten the color and how can we darken the color. But most of us have been around long enough to know it's not quite as simple as that, is it? Because there's more way than one to lighten a color. Now, so let's just divide it into 2 ways. Let's lighten and cool it, and let's lighten and warm it. Okay? And if you're new to color, you may think, why would I want to do that? You have to know to do that because that's the language and the controls the painter needs in order to execute his images, their images, her images. Okay? So, value, step 1. Up, cool, up, warm. And then we also have to be able to move it down in value. And again, not quite so simple. But let's start by thinking darken, cool, and darken, warm. Okay? And so what happened is we had, let's just say X color here in the center. We had yellow ochre and burnt umber yesterday. And we mixed it into a neutral, a mid-value neutral. That wasn't very easy to see what color it is. All right, doesn't jump off the page. And we talked about how white will lighten and cool everything. Everything. This is going to lighten and warm everything. Right? It'll take it to a lighter, warmer direction. Right? I shouldn't quite say everything because we're getting more into relativity here. But let's just set that aside for right now. Let's keep it simple. Lighter, cooler. Lighter, warmer. And then just looking at the pigments, we can see that we have 3 that are darker. We have a neutral dark with our ivory black. We have a warm dark with our burnt umber. And we have a cool dark with our Payne's gray. Okay? We decided to simplify. Rather than going in 3 directions, we were going to go into 2. And rather than using our neutral, we were going to pull over with Payne's gray. Those are artistic decisions. Okay? Artistic decisions. So we're going to put Payne's gray down here. So what do we have here? Well, we have from a light value to a dark value, cool. White's neutral, but it's going to cool so our cool side. Up here, we have our cool light value to our warm light value. And then with our burnt umber, we have our warm light to our warm dark. And then here we have our warm dark to a cool dark. So you guys see this box now? Warms, cools, lights, darks. Okay? I'm hoping that this is becoming like a thinking tool for you. Right? And then what we said, basically all you're going to do is pull this out in those directions. And we went and we mixed a little color wheel or a color X from this yesterday. Okay, I'm not going to repeat that whole exercise, but just a reminder, because today we're going to be working from our reference image a bit, and we're going to need this kind of directional control over it. Okay? Again, not going to run through all of that. 30 minutes isn't very much time. Oops. Already 10 minutes in, but so we got to end early. There we go. Let's get that started. Let's get that started. Okay, so our reference image that we're working from is that right there. Look at all those warms. Look at all those warms. So a lot of times when we're doing this, let's go ahead and look at this for a second. Let's give this a good look. Where to start? Where to start? I mean, I see some of those leaves, especially that one in light above the pear, has got a bit of a cool in it. But look at the background. I'm going to say that that's warm all the way across. The tabletop, I'm going to say that's warm all the way across. The sunflowers, I'm going to say that's warm all the way across. The pear's warm all the way across. We got a lot of warm in there. We've got a lot of warm. Now, when I say warm, again, I'm talking color wheel warm. Within that color wheel, look how cool that tabletop is, even though it's on the warm side of the color wheel. What it is, it's the warm side of the color wheel with white added to it. Okay? And the flower petals in light are almost more of a yellow, aren't they? So why don't we start with our high-end obvious stuff? Okay, so our flowers aren't quite as light as our pear or our tabletop, are they? No, they got a little bit of a deeper, richer tone, don't they? They're slightly darker and slightly richer. Will that, yeah, believe it or not, that'll darken it up and make it a richer color. This will darken up more orange. This will darken up more red. I'm going to guess we're going to be somewhere between these two. Probably with a touch of that. So let's see. Let's leave that as is. And then if we take our cad yellow, let's just add a touch. If you have cad orange, your cad orange by itself will probably do. But since I'm using the cad yellow deep, it's not quite as deep, so I need a bit of red just to tug it over there a little bit. And again, I'm not going to need very much of this at all to influence this. But you see how that color's becoming richer? Again, small quantity. Most of the time, a lot of your color mixing mistakes is coming because we're not being careful with our quantities. Okay? So here we go. Here we go. So let's just say that's rough, but let's say that's the sunflower in light. Right? The sunflower petal in light. Right? Towards the top of the canvas there, you see those sunflower petals? Now if you look and try to take the whole painting in as once and compare those sunflower petals in light to the pear and to the tabletop. Okay? How are we doing on our time? Hey, we're doing good. We're doing good. Okay. So, let me mix up enough so that we have here. Come on, you gotta have enough that you can mix. It's gotta feel good. We can't forget the basics. We can't forget the basics. Look, a little bit more, and look how much further that. You gotta be careful with those quantities. All right. So wherever we are, and the beauty about oil painting and color in general is it really doesn't matter so much exactly where that is. What's going to matter is the relationship between the other colors. Okay, so don't get too caught up in, oh, my color looks different than that. This isn't about that. It's about learning to go from here in different directions and what those directions look like. Now, at least on mine, do I have my screen up too bright? Mine's looking a little bit washed out. Maybe I had my screen too bright there. But that's relatively dark and rich. And just because our pear in light is what? Warmer or cooler than this? It's cooler. Our tabletop in light is warmer or cooler than this? It's cooler. So what's warmer or cooler, the pear or the tabletop? Right? As I see it, the sunflowers in light are the warmest at this value. Then we're going to the pear in light as cooler, and the coolest of the three is the tabletop in light. Are you guys able to see that? I hope you're able to see that. But whether you do or not, try to understand, even if you don't quite get what the terms mean, how we're going to move this. Now, we're not going to move this lighter warmer are we? We're going to move these slightly lighter and cooler. Now in the photograph, the pair is in the middle value-wise, and the tabletop is lightest. When we eventually do this painting, we're going to switch those values. But for today, let's just mix how they are to avoid us changing too much. So our sunflower and light, how do we go from that to lighter, cooler, and then from there to lighter, cooler? Well, we're going to add more white and less of our quote-unquote yellow for the lightest. Here we're going to add a little more of our quote-unquote yellow and less white. And here we're going to add just a tiny bit of white. Why? Because if something's in light, it needs to be lit up. In order for it to look lit up, it's got to have a certain amount of white in there. That'll cool it off. Not complete white, a certain quantity. All right, so let's see. It feels like I may have got a little short there. Again, I'm not going to throw this in the middle, but I'm going to start at the edge and try to pull these together until I got a value and a temperature I like. So is this lighter, cooler than that? Well, yes it is. Yes it is. We got to keep going here because we need to add a little bit of white in there too. Right? So again, a lot of this is you're practicing your control of how much pigment we're adding. Okay, I feel like we need more white. Okay, cooler. Warmer, warmer, but we still need a little white in here to look lit up. So let me just put the minimal amount for right now. Okay. So there we have it. Wait a minute. Does that feel right to you? No. Well, did we go from warmer to cooler? Yeah. So what's wrong? The measure. Does the tabletop feel that yellowish to you? No, it doesn't to me either. Doesn't to me either. So how could we make this less chromatic or more neutral and keep it the lightest and coolest thing up there? So I want to try a couple different options here. Okay? One is we can remix with a weaker color. In other words, what if we took yellow ochre and white instead of our cad yellow light and white? And again, don't throw it all in there, just start on the side. Now that's feeling a lot closer to me, right? It still feels a little bright, a little peachy. So what are we going to do? Well, we can neutralize it, right? Now I can come up here and get, but what I'm going to suggest is you try to set up this kind of corner structure where you have kind of universals that can darken warm, can darken cool, and then work through those. Okay? So what that would mean here, I need to neutralize, right? White's not going to quite get me there. So our gray, or Payne's gray, our dark might help, but it's going to mess up the value. So why don't we just bring a gray to the value we need, and then slowly, carefully, because this color isn't super strong, we don't want to yank it over to the blue side. But I do want to start weakening it. So what I'm doing now is adjusting chroma. Right? Did you guys remember our journey from here? That's some subtle movement, but these movements are going to make all the difference. All the difference. Okay, so now this is feeling a little bit closer to me. Our pear, does our pear feel like that? Not really. Not really. So maybe with our pear, rather than this, maybe we could add our yellow ochre. So you see I'm going from a less or more cool to a less cool. I hope that makes sense, because that's how you want to think about color. Okay, what if we add just a touch of this now into that? And then I think with some more white, so you see we're still being separate. I know, pretty close and tricky here. These little movements is what we have control with, right? Most beginners are trying to fix everything with big tube color movements. That's not going to get you very far. That's not going to get you very far, right? So do you see all the beautiful yellows we're getting there? So we've got the boom. And if we need more separation, well, those are about maxed out. Well, we could separate that more. So those sunflower leaves become more like that. Can you see how we've more or less held our value right here? But we've gone through these different objects. So these different objects will read slightly different, but holding the same value, they're going to give us a bigger design. A bigger design. Okay. So if this was our light, what would our background then look like? So for our background, what I'm going to do is we want a lower value, and its background, so we want the chroma more neutral. Now, a lot of times we say, well, we want backgrounds to be the cool. Well, in this case, they're going to be cooler, but this background's still on the warm side. So again, I'm going to take a weaker Instead of a cadmium, how about the ochre? And does that value look big enough? Not quite to me. That ochre still looks a little bit bright. So maybe burnt umber. Let's keep it on the warm side. And now I'm feeling like I may be into some background range. Value-wise. Value-wise. Because what are the big value ranges we need? We need a highlight, a white, which once we get better is not going to be pure white, but is that showing up? Is that showing up? Is that showing up? Okay, and if it is or isn't, that's going to tell you if these colors are bright enough or not. Not bright enough, dark enough or not. If the highlight's not reading, then we need to darken these colors. Darken these piles. Okay, so our background. So this seems a little bit dark, and I want some transparency in the background. So I'm going to go for, again, my orange, and in this case, since my yellow light isn't quite as deep as I want it, and that's a little deeper than I want it, I'm going to use a combination of my cad yellow deep and my cad yellow light to get to a truer quote-unquote orange. Because what I'd like is to take a little bit of that orange with a touch of our cad yellow. Right, so I'm adding, basically I've got a little bit of all of our cadmiums in here. And when I add a touch of this to that background, look at how much color gets in there. So that background is going to travel from something like that over to this and maybe even a little bit brighter. So we got one value, highlight. We've got two values, our light, our color. Well, in this case, well, let's not get into that. So our background is going to be in this range. So where does that put our shadows? Well, our shadows are going to be relatively dark and warm, aren't they? Well, warm, dark. We could start with our burnt umber, but do we really want it that kind of heavy? Probably not. So in the sunflowers, their shadows have a lot more red. The pear shadow and even the tablecloth shadow is much more of a neutral warm. Again, if all these words are confusing you, kind of just let them go and let your eyes see what's happening. Eventually it'll make sense. When I started this, man, these terms would turn me inside out. Oof, they would turn me inside out. So for the cad red, so maybe a little bit much there. But are we darker than our, yeah, we're darker than our background. Darker than our background. Now in this particular setup, and I know we're running out of time, we're getting really, really short, but in this particular setup, we also have a dark black. So I want to make sure there's a touch more room in my shadow. Something like that. Now look, these have become the same value. But do you see how much stronger this is because of the color, red, and the chroma, right? Or orange, whatever we want to call that. So that might be our brightest sunflower shadows. Then our pear shadow is going to be a little more not so hot, more neutral. So rather than cad red, I'm going to add a little yellow ochre. And it's so much weaker than the cad red, I'm going to have to add a lot more, you know. Each of these pigments have a strength. And you go from the cadmiums, which are just like NFL linebackers that are 7 feet tall and 400 pounds, to kind of your normal guy, yellow ochre here. Man, those football players are a bit stronger. Right, now that pear is going to have to go darker, isn't it, to hold as a shadow. Maybe somewhere in there. Right, how would you darken that if you wanted this darkened? Maybe you leave this for like reflected light. But you still want this warm, but man, and let's get darker than that. So just more burnt umber. Again, it's a quantity thing. Okay, so do you guys see how then even within these warms, we're building our 4 values, and how about that dark accent as we finish the show? Well, that dark accent, what we could do, even, I mean, look, we haven't even touched the gray yet. But that, and then just so it's involved with everything else that we've got here, I would stick maybe a touch of cad red, I mean just a tiniest kiss of it, and a touch of burnt umber too. Why? Because we want this to have a little bit, all of these have warm in them, and that's going to stick out too far. So for right now, to get this palette harmonized, we may do this slightly different in the painting. Again, remember, this is exercises here. Okay, I know our 30 minutes is up, but let me review what we have here, and we'll send you guys off. And I'll get back to my new little newborn baby. I'll get back to my little baby that we just gave birth to. No, not an actual child. It was the course. But nonetheless, it was a birth. I promise you there was a birth. I promise you there was yelling and screaming, and a lot of joy. Highlight. What are we calling highlight now? That's the pinnacle of our painting. Our light and color. What are we calling our light and color? That is the achievement of our painting. Our background. What is our background? Our background is the in-between. Our shadows are going to be our foundation. And occasionally we'll have a dark accent, which will be our anchor. Okay? So, given the time restraints and the amount we covered, here's an example of how you might break down and mix for this reference. Now, does my tabletop color match the tabletop? Does my pear color match the pear? Does my sunflowers in light match the sunflowers in light? I don't care. And neither should you. What you should care about is the relationships between the colors you mixed. In other words, how this looks together. And not if this matches that. Right? Like literally, this is our concern. Does this look good? And at first, when you change your focus to that, you're not really sure what it means to look good, and so you go run. Don't run off. Just hang out here for a little while. Be lost, right? Being lost means you're in between your old understanding and a new understanding. But you have to be okay kind of wandering around for just a little while and go, wait, it makes sense, but I just don't get it. Or, wait, what? I know he can paint, but those words coming out of his mouth, what? It took me forever for me to associate the words we use to describe these and what it does to the paint and how it looks. In my mind, and I think in most, at least Americans' minds, if not most people in the world, the way a painter thinks and uses and manipulates color is so different than how we're used to. Okay? So again, if you're lost, keep coming back, keep getting set up, and very soon we're going to be announcing our 3-month paint along for artistic development. Right? We're going to do this through awareness, practice, understanding, inspiration, and motivation. I've been doing this a long time, and it seems like I figure out one little piece, but it's still not working. And this piece, what I've come to understand is there's got to be a combination of the pieces, and all of them have to be employed. All right? So this is a growth-focused online oil painting course, and let's grow better together. There'll be portrait, landscape, and still life. We'll use all 3 through the exercises and studies. You can choose the portrait, landscape, or still life to paint. You are welcome to choose more than one to paint if your time, supplies, and energy allows. I will be painting all 3, so you'll see my examples regardless of the subject matter you choose. The class is going to be taught as if we were working together on one of my paintings in my studios. You will have the same opportunities to make all the critical decisions as I do as we work through the process of creating a painting together. In order to become a better artist, you have to make better artistic decisions. Throughout the entire painting process, I'll show you how and tell you why I make the decisions I do. Through the exercises and studies we do in class, you can discover and understand for yourself the things we discuss and see. I'm going to cover it all in here. It'll be a 13-week course, 6 weeks studying and preparing to execute the painting. There's going to be 6 weeks to execute the painting and 1 week to review and celebrate. During every week, there's going to be tremendous learning and growing and assignments to help you work along. All right, so a little sneak peek. Sorry about that, but I am so excited about that. I cannot even tell you guys. So until tonight, there's Sketch Club on Facebook. So I hope to see many of you guys there. We're going to be working on the eye again. I was blown away by what I saw from Sunday's class. So tune in for that. Tomorrow, we will be right back here for Morning Jumpstart. And Rini says Mondays and Fridays as usual, different groups. We're going to have similar things going on, but we're going to switch up some recordings and live. Like Monday morning's lessons will be recorded and the assignment will be recorded. It'll be short and to the point, probably 15 or 20 minutes. The assignment will be very well laid out, short to the point, 15 to 20 minutes, and allows you to go and work. But then there'll also be live sessions twice a week for Q&A if you have any. We will be doing compositional studies together like we're doing mix-alongs. We're going to be doing mix-alongs together like you saw today. And then when we get to the second half, I will start giving you feedback again when we start painting on the size and placement and the lay-in. By stretching this out, rather than throwing this information at you like I have been with the fire hose, we're going to be able to slow down and take it step by step, right? But in order to do that, we're going to have to stretch it out. All right, that's enough. More info to come very soon. Love all of you guys, and we'll see you guys again soon. Bye, everybody.